You want answers?
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, folks, for today's Radical Rant, I want to talk a little bit about the phenomenon of e-cigarettes. It's just starting to get noticed by the mainstream media. And before I rant, I want to give you a look at a couple of commercials just to set the context. First one stars Stephen Dorff.
-1. I'm tired of being a walking ashtray. -2. I'm tired of feeling guilty every time I want to light up. I'm Stephen Dorff. I've been a smoker for 20 years. And I just found the smarter alternative. Blue e-cigs. Blue lets me enjoy smoking without it affecting the people around me. Because it's vapor, not tobacco smoke. That means no ash. And best of all, no offensive odor. With Blue, you can smoke at a basketball game if you want to. And how about not having to go outside every 10 minutes when you're in a bar with your friends? The point is, you can smoke Blue virtually anywhere. We're all adults here. It's time we take our freedom back. Come on, guys. Rise from the ashes.
Of course, that blue cigarette ad by Stephen Dorff. The first thing I notice about this is how it so strongly markets to the notion of freedom and away from offensive odors without mentioning a thing about the health considerations or how much better vaporizing is for you. Here's another commercial featuring actress Jenny McCarthy.
You know, I love being single, but here's what I don't love. A kiss that tastes like an ashtray. Blech. I'm Jenny McCarthy, and I finally found a smarter alternative to cigarettes. Blue e-cigs. Blue satisfies me. I get to have a blue without the guilt because there's only vapor, not tobacco smoke. That means no ash, no odor, which also means I don't get the stink eye from others. Also, it doesn't make my hair smell, my teeth turn yellow. You get the idea. That's why I am in love with blue e-cigs. Now that I've switched to blue, I feel better about myself. But I feel free to have one almost anywhere. When I'm driving, at home, watching TV, or when I'm in the club. And no going outside in the rain or freezing my butt off just to take a puff. I can whip out my blue and not worry about scaring that special someone away. You know what I'm saying? Finally, with blue, I took back my freedom.
Once again, you get the e-cigarette ad that speaks to the freedom for the user, and also in the case of marketing to women here, marketing the lack of cigarette-smelling hair and turning off a potential suitor because of the smell of cigarettes or the taste of kissing someone who's been smoking cigarettes. And this has been kind of a relatively new phenomenon, and as the use of these electronic cigarettes becomes more popular with endorsements by actors like Jenny McCarthy and Stephen Dorff, the public health officials are worried now and are raising alarms and scaremongering about these devices, leading to underage nicotine use and surreptitious cannabis use. Now, the development of the marketing of these e-cigarettes has capitalized, as you just heard, on this longing for freedom by smokers from these odious anti-smoking laws. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that there were smoking sections in restaurants. It was not unheard of to smoke at some workplaces, on the beach, in a park, wherever. In fact, people of a certain age can even remember when there was smoking allowed on airplanes. So in the course of a generation, we've seen these odious anti-smoking laws forcing users of nicotine products, of tobacco, to have to be 50 feet away from doorways and can't smoke at work and can't smoke in enclosed places and can't even smoke in bars, one of the places that were most associated with cigarette smoke. And there are all sorts of reasons that this came about. The primary reason being the supposed danger of secondhand smoke to people who might be working in these places. But these anti-smoking laws spread from California and New York and soon became pretty much the standard for public buildings and public places all throughout the United States. Now, I'm not here to argue whether or not that was a good or bad thing. We can point to reduction in teenage use of cigarettes as a potential good that came out from all of that. But smokers as of late have been social pariahs. So smokers have been forced out in the streets, forced into the cold, into the rain, and forced to pay, in some places, exorbitant taxes on a pack of cigarettes. And for the longest time, those of us in the cannabis community, at the least, didn't stand up for the smokers, and at the worst, demonized those smokers, and it may come back to bite us on the ass here. I feel that we need to have as many allies as we can possibly have, and we need to broaden our coalition beyond just people who enjoy the freedom to smoke cannabis, but into a coalition of people who enjoy freedom, period. Whether that's smoking cannabis, smoking tobacco, using alcohol, etc. And the framing of this in the commercials, I really have to applaud the framing of this toward the freedom issue. You know, Stephen Dorff says, "I'm tired of feeling guilty every time I want to light up. And we're all adults here. It's time we take our freedom back." Kind of capitalizing on a feeling by a lot of people that this is a nanny state that is now treating American adults like children with respect to their choice of using tobacco. Then, of course, Jenny McCarthy's quote about the smarter alternative to cigarettes: no ash, no odor, no tobacco-scented hair, no stained teeth. And again, that tagline of taking back my freedom. But that same freedom to inhale vaporized nicotine from e-cigarettes comes with unintended consequences that the regulators now and the public health officials are just beginning to understand. In most U.S. states, laws regulating cigarette smoking and tobacco purchases do just that, specifically. That means that the vaporized liquid nicotine, which isn't tobacco, and a handheld vaporizer, which isn't a cigarette, do not fall under these regulations. And that would include age limits on purchasing cigarettes. There's been reports of teenagers going to these convenience stores and buying as many of these e-cigarette nicotine vaporizers as they like, because technically they're not cigarettes, and the laws protecting, forcing the carding of 18-year-old and under don't apply. According to the Centers for Disease Control, teen experimentation with e-cigarettes rose from 4.7% in 2011 to 10% in 2012. 1 out of 10 teenagers between middle school and high school age has tried an e-cigarette. And this has public health officials very worried, considering the fact that we've reduced teen cigarette smoking from, or the people who have tried cigarettes in their teenage years, from 70% in my day to less than 40% today. And they're worried that this may undo years and years of teaching, public education, and various tactics to get fewer kids to smoke cigarettes. In fact, regulators are working feverishly now to restrict e-cigarette use by youth and the open use of e-cigarettes by adults. A Florida representative filed a bill today to apply the same restrictions to e-cigarettes as regular cigarettes. An Ohio lawmaker wants to put the same sin taxes on cigarettes on e-cigarettes. New York State has already banned sales to minors, sales near schools, and use on public trains. And there's a proposal in Massachusetts that would ban e-cigarette use anywhere cigarette smoking is banned. But all these knee-jerk bans on e-cigarettes ignore one really important point. They are a safer alternative to cigarettes. In Forbes magazine, their latest op-ed written by a medical doctor asks, quote, "Why is the FDA shielding smokers from the good news about e-cigarettes?" End quote. He notes studies that show that e-cigarettes help many smokers successfully quit cigarettes where the patches and the gums and the other things fail. And when most of the bad health effects from smoking come from the smoke, not the nicotine, eliminating that smoke would be a net public good. And the doctor also explains that the nonprofits that are behind the anti-e-cigarette activism are heavily funded by, you guessed it, the pharmaceutical companies that manufacture the pills, the gums, and the patches that they sell to help you quit smoking. They took a look at this in Europe, and European regulators recently rejected calls to treat e-cigarettes and vaporizers as tightly regulated medical devices, and instead went with common sense restrictions, like an age requirement of 18 years old and bans on advertising, like we do for cigarettes. But in the United States, if the reflexive repulsion to adults getting away with nicotine use and the "what about the children" wasn't enough to cripple the nascent e-cigarette industry, perhaps the media's overdue discovery about the vaporization of cannabis with these e-cigarettes will put the final nail in the coffin. NBC New York investigated this phenomenon. They interviewed High Times' Bobby Black, who explained how the younger generation is embracing it, and this is a new way of consuming cannabis. Vaporization, NBC explained, allows the consumer to use cannabis without the distinctive odor of burning weed. NBC even spoke to a lifelong toker who told of using his cannabis e-cig on the train from Baltimore to New York without being detected. Well, we've long explained to you folks how cannabis vaporization is a healthier alternative to smoke, and many medical marijuana patients in America couldn't use cannabis without vaporization. But now, vaporizers have evolved from those big tabletop volcanoes and Silver Surfers to these handheld portable vape pens and sticks that are indistinguishable from the e-cigarettes. In fact, some manufacturers now are even responding to certain users who've jerry-rigged their e-cigs to become cannabis vapes by creating new models that can work with nicotine or hash oil. Now, both nicotine and cannabis vaping would be huge public health improvements for this country, but both face an uphill battle against prohibition-minded legislators. Will cannabis vaping become the excuse that states use to ban all e-cigarettes? Or will smokers rise up and fight for their own freedom and by proxy help us tokers secure some freedom of our own? I think it's time for us to have an alliance with the cigarette smokers and to frame our argument as one around freedom. This is gaining traction among adult smokers who are sick and tired of being relegated to the back alleys and the rainy shelters and not even being able to smoke in bars. And I think as cannabis smokers that we should jump on that freedom train right now. Because the use of e-cigarettes, if it becomes normalized, if it becomes something that people are used to seeing, will only be a net benefit for us cannabis consumers who will be undetectable amongst all the e-cigarette users. That, of course, is what they fear. They won't be able to tell who's smoking and who's vaping. And my point would be, if we're getting high amongst all the cigarette smokers and you can't tell, what's the damn problem in the first place? All right, folks, that's all the time we got here, but stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. It's Fired Up Friday. The topics are open. The phone lines are open at 971-533-7111. We're hanging out with Stoney and Snap and Brian the Red, and it's going to be a good time for everybody. Also, if you're in the Portland area, tonight I will be appearing on the Ed Foreman Show at Al's Den at the Crystal Hotel downtown, starting after Herb Thrasher Flower Hour, so somewhere around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. We'll be on with Portland's King of Late Night. It's going to be a good time. I'll get it filmed. I'll remember to bring enough batteries this time. And we'll show it on next week's show. Folks, that's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Radical Russ. For Stoney and Snap and Brian the Red and Left Wing Larry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it,